What if you went to bed last night owning the same home, earning the same income, and woke up owing thousands of dollars more in property taxes? That's exactly what's happening to homeowners across Texas right now. No warning calls, no personal letters, just a bill that looks like a mistake, but isn't. In some areas, tax bills jumped by 20%, 30%, even 50% overnight, and many families are still trying to figure out why. Here's the scary part. Most homeowners did nothing wrong. They didn't sell their house, they didn't renovate, they didn't suddenly get richer, yet the system quietly changed the rules behind the scenes. New appraisals, hidden policy shifts, expired exemptions, small technical changes that turned into big financial shocks. And if you don't understand what changed, you could keep overpaying every single year. Stay with us till the end, because one overlooked detail in this video could be the difference between accepting a higher bill or legally fighting it and saving thousands.
Number 1. New property appraisal methods changed everything. For years, many Texas homeowners assumed their property value only mattered when selling their home. That belief is no longer safe. Under the new system, appraisal districts across Texas updated how and how often they calculate home values, and that single change triggered massive tax bill increases overnight. Here's what really happened. Appraisal offices began relying more heavily on real-time market data instead of long-term averages. That means recent home sales in your neighborhood, especially high-priced ones, now have more influence on your home's assessed value. Even if your house hasn't been upgraded, remodeled, or improved in any way, the system may now treat it as if it has gained value simply because other homes nearby sold for more. What makes this more shocking is that many homeowners never see the calculation process. The valuation appears as a final number on the bill, with little explanation of how it was reached. In fast-growing areas, this new approach caused sudden valuation spikes that feel unfair and confusing. People woke up to tax bills based on a paper value they never agreed to and can't easily verify. The most important part? Appraisals are not permanent facts, they're estimates, and estimates can be challenged. Most homeowners don't realize they have the legal right to protest these new valuations. Simple actions like reviewing comparable sales, checking for property data errors, or filing an appeal before the deadline can make a real financial difference. If you ignore this change, your taxes may keep climbing year after year. But if you understand how the appraisal system works now, you gain power, leverage, and options. And that's exactly what most homeowners are missing.
Number 2. Local governments quietly raise tax rates. While most homeowners focused on rising home values, another major change happened behind the scenes. Local tax rates went up. This is one of the most misunderstood reasons Texas property tax bills jumped overnight. Even if your home value stayed the same, a higher tax rate alone can push your bill significantly higher. Here's the key thing many people miss. In Texas, property taxes are largely controlled by local governments, not just the state. Cities, counties, school districts, and special districts all set their own rates. When inflation increased the cost of public services, salaries, road repairs, and utilities, many local authorities responded the fastest way they could, by raising property tax rates. What makes this more frustrating is how quietly it happens. Rate changes are often approved during low attendance meetings or buried inside long budget documents. There's rarely a clear announcement saying your taxes are going up. Instead, homeowners only discover the change when the final bill arrives, and by then it feels sudden and unavoidable. School districts play a huge role here. With rising operational costs and funding gaps, many districts adjusted rates to maintain services. The result? Homeowners unknowingly began paying more to support local budgets stretched by inflation. Even small percentage increases can translate into hundreds or thousands of dollars more per year when applied to higher property values. The real danger is misunderstanding the cause. Many homeowners blame appraisals alone, never realizing that rate hikes doubled the impact. Knowing this matters because rate increases are public decisions, and public decisions can be questioned, challenged, and voted on. If you don't pay attention to local tax rate changes, you're not just paying more, you're paying without a voice. Understanding this reason gives you awareness, and awareness is the first step toward protecting your money. Number 3. Temporary tax relief ended, and most homeowners didn't notice. During the last few years, many Texas homeowners unknowingly benefited from temporary tax relief programs. These measures were introduced to soften the financial impact of economic uncertainty, rising costs, and housing market disruptions. The problem? Temporary relief doesn't last forever, and when it ended, many people were caught completely off guard. Here's why this felt so sudden. These relief programs didn't come with loud expiration warnings. There were no alerts saying, your tax protection is about to disappear. Instead, exemptions, caps, and reduced assessment rules quietly expired or phased out. On paper, nothing new was added, but in reality, homeowners lost protections that had been holding their tax bills down. This created a dangerous illusion. Families adjusted their budgets believing their property taxes were stable or normal. When the relief ended, their next bill jumped sharply, making it feel like a brand new tax increase, when it was actually the removal of a shield they didn't know they had. For many households, this meant hundreds or even thousands of dollars more due, with no time to prepare. What makes this even more frustrating is that different areas lost relief at different times. Some homeowners were hit earlier, others later, creating confusion and mixed information online. Many assumed the spike was a mistake or a one-time error, when in reality it was a permanent change unless new relief is introduced. The biggest lesson here is awareness. Temporary relief should never be treated as permanent. Homeowners who monitor their exemptions and understand which protections are time-limited are far less likely to be shocked by sudden increases. If you didn't notice the relief ending, you're not alone, but ignoring it means accepting higher bills year after year. Understanding this reason helps you plan, adjust, and avoid future financial surprises. Number 4. Homestead exemptions were missed, reduced, or never updated. For many Texas homeowners, the homestead exemption is the single biggest protection against rising property taxes. Yet one of the most costly mistakes happening right now is that thousands of homeowners lost part or all of this exemption without realizing it, and that alone caused their tax bills to jump overnight. Here's how it happens. Homestead exemptions are not always automatic forever. Changes in ownership records, refinancing, address mismatches, or simple paperwork errors can cause the exemption to fall off the system. In some cases, new rules required homeowners to reapply or update information, and those who missed the notice paid the price. When the exemption disappears, the taxable value of the home increases instantly, sometimes by tens of thousands of dollars. This issue hits certain groups especially hard. Seniors, longtime homeowners, and first-time buyers are often the most affected. Seniors may assume their exemption is locked in for life. New homeowners may not realize they must actively apply after purchase. And families who moved within the same county often believe the exemption transferred automatically when it didn't. What makes this even more painful is how invisible the problem can be. The tax bill doesn't clearly say your exemption is missing. It just shows a higher amount due. Many homeowners don't compare year-to-year details closely enough to spot the change until it's too late to fix for that year. The good news? In many cases, exemptions can be reinstated or corrected if caught early. Reviewing your appraisal notice, confirming exemption status, and contacting your local appraisal district can prevent years of overpayment. If your tax bill rose sharply and you don't know why, this should be one of the first things you check. A missing exemption isn't just a mistake, it's money quietly leaving your pocket.
Number 5. Home values rose faster than paychecks, and taxes followed. One of the most frustrating realities for Texas homeowners is this: your home can become more valuable without your life improving at all. Over the past few years, home prices across Texas surged at historic speeds. Even though the market has cooled in some areas, property tax systems are only now catching up, and homeowners are paying the price. Here's why this hurts so much. Property taxes are based on estimated market value, not what you paid for your home or what you earn. So while your paycheck stayed the same and your monthly expenses increased, your home was quietly reclassified as being worth far more on paper. That paper gain may look good in headlines, but it means higher taxes every single year, even if you never plan to sell. This impact is especially severe in fast-growing cities and suburbs. New developments, luxury homes, and bidding wars pushed nearby sale prices higher. Appraisal systems then used those sales as comparisons, pulling up values for older, modest homes that don't match the upgrades or size of the new properties. Homeowners suddenly found themselves taxed as if their house was something it's not. What makes this situation feel unfair is that rising home value doesn't equal usable cash. You can't spend it unless you sell or refinance, and even then, higher taxes eat into those gains. Many families feel house rich but cash poor, trapped by a system that rewards growth but punishes stability. The key takeaway is this: rising values are not always good news. If your income didn't rise with your home's value, your tax burden becomes heavier over time. That's why understanding how values are calculated and knowing when they've gone too far is critical. If you don't question inflated valuations, you accept a future where your taxes keep climbing faster than your ability to pay them. If this video answered questions you didn't even know to ask, drop a comment telling us how much your tax bill changed. Your story might help another homeowner. We put real research and serious effort into breaking this down, so please subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it helps us keep protecting homeowners like you.
Number 6. School district funding pressures shifted the burden to homeowners. One of the largest drivers behind rising property tax bills in Texas is something many homeowners don't immediately connect to their own finances: school funding. Public schools rely heavily on property taxes to operate, and when funding pressures increase, homeowners often become the silent source of support. Here's what changed. Rising costs for teacher salaries, transportation, technology, security, and facility maintenance put school districts under intense financial stress. At the same time, shifts in student enrollment and limitations on state funding left many districts with budget gaps. To keep schools running smoothly, districts adjusted tax rates and valuations, moves that directly raised property tax bills for homeowners. What makes this particularly frustrating is that these changes don't always feel transparent. Funding decisions are typically discussed in school board meetings, bond proposals, or local elections that many homeowners don't attend or fully understand. Yet once approved, the financial impact shows up clearly on your tax bill, often with no explanation of how education costs increased your personal tax burden. Another key factor is school bond measures. When voters approve bonds for new schools, renovations, or technology upgrades, those bonds are repaid over time through property taxes. The benefits may take years to appear, but the cost begins almost immediately. Many homeowners only realize this connection after their bill jumps significantly. This burden falls hardest on homeowners who don't have children in the school system. They often feel disconnected from the decisions, yet remain fully responsible for the cost. Even families with children may be surprised by how quickly school-related taxes can grow when multiple measures stack over time. Understanding this reason is important because school funding changes are public decisions. When homeowners stay informed and involved, they gain a voice. When they don't, they simply pay more, year after year, without realizing why.
Number 7. State-level tax changes shifted who pays more and who pays less. Many Texas homeowners assume that if the state announces tax relief, everyone benefits equally. The reality is far more complicated. Recent state-level tax adjustments didn't eliminate property taxes, they reshuffled the burden. And for many homeowners, that reshuffle meant paying more while others paid less. Here's how this happened. To balance budgets and encourage economic growth, lawmakers adjusted how different property categories are taxed. In some cases, relief was directed toward businesses, commercial properties, or specific industries. While that may help attract investment, it often leaves residential homeowners carrying a larger share of local funding responsibilities. These changes are rarely obvious on the surface. Homeowners don't see a line on their tax bill saying, "State policy shift applied here." Instead, the effect appears indirectly: higher local rates, fewer exemptions, or reduced protections for owner-occupied homes. Because the change happens at the policy level, it feels sudden and confusing when the bill arrives. Another issue is how relief is advertised. Headlines highlight total tax cuts or billions in savings statewide, but they don't explain how those savings are distributed. Many homeowners assume they'll see immediate reductions only to discover their bill went up instead of down. This gap between expectation and reality creates frustration and mistrust. The impact varies widely depending on where you live. Some communities benefit from commercial growth that offsets residential taxes. Others don't, meaning homeowners become the default funding source for local services. Without understanding the state's role, people blame appraisals or inflation alone, missing the bigger picture. The key lesson here is awareness. State-level decisions shape local outcomes, even when they're not visible. If homeowners don't track these shifts, they lose the ability to advocate for fair treatment. Understanding this reason won't change your bill overnight, but it gives you clarity, and clarity is the first step toward long-term protection.
Number 8. Special property valuations were removed or reclassified. For many Texas homeowners, especially those in rural or semi-rural areas, their tax bill exploded because a special property valuation quietly disappeared. These special valuations, such as agricultural or land use classifications, dramatically reduce taxable value. When they're removed or reclassified, the result can feel like a financial earthquake. Here's how it happens. Land that was once taxed under a special use valuation is assessed based on how it's used, not its full market value. But as development spreads and nearby land is sold, counties often reclassify property, even if the owner hasn't changed how they use it. Suddenly, land that was taxed as agricultural is taxed as residential or commercial, multiplying its taxable value overnight. What makes this especially painful is that homeowners often don't realize they're at risk. Development happening miles away can trigger reevaluations. A nearby subdivision, new road, or zoning change can cause appraisal districts to argue that the land's highest and best use has changed, even if nothing on the property itself has. The financial impact is severe. Losing a special valuation can increase taxable value by 5, 10, or even 20 times. Families who have owned land for generations find themselves facing tax bills they simply can't afford. Many are forced to sell, not because they want to, but because the taxes make staying impossible. Another issue is paperwork. Special valuations often require ongoing compliance, documentation, or renewal. Missing a filing, misunderstanding a requirement, or assuming the status is permanent can lead to automatic removal. Once lost, reinstating it can be difficult and time-sensitive. The most important takeaway is this: special valuations are powerful but fragile. If you have one or think you should, you must monitor it closely. Losing it without noticing is one of the fastest ways to watch your property taxes spiral out of control.
Number 9.
Voter-approved bonds and local projects increased long-term taxes. Many Texas homeowners were shocked by higher tax bills because of something they barely remember voting on or didn't realize would affect them at all: local bond measures. These bonds fund projects like new schools, roads, public safety facilities, and infrastructure upgrades. While they often sound beneficial, their financial impact shows up later, directly on your property tax bill. Here's how it works. When voters approve a bond, the government doesn't pay for the project up front with existing cash. Instead, it borrows money and agrees to repay it over many years. That repayment comes from property taxes. So even though the vote may have happened years ago, homeowners start feeling the cost once repayment schedules kick in or expand. What makes this especially confusing is timing. Bond approvals and tax increases rarely happen at the same moment. Homeowners may support a project thinking the cost will be minimal or shared widely, only to discover later that rising home values multiplied the impact of those bonds. As property values increase, the amount collected through bonds rises too, without another vote. Another issue is stacked bonds. Over time, multiple local projects can overlap. One bond may still be active when another is approved, creating a layered effect that gradually pushes taxes higher. Individually, each bond seems manageable. Together, they can significantly increase what homeowners owe every year. Many people assume bonds only affect large commercial properties or new developments. In reality, residential homeowners often carry the bulk of the burden, especially in areas where commercial growth hasn't kept pace with residential expansion. The result is a slow but steady rise in taxes that feels unavoidable. The key lesson here is awareness. Bond measures are long-term commitments, not one-time decisions. Understanding how they affect property taxes helps homeowners make informed choices and avoid being surprised when the bill finally arrives. Number 10. Most homeowners miss appeal deadlines and overpay for years. The final and perhaps most painful reason Texas property tax bills stay high is simple. Most homeowners never fight back. Not because they can't, but because they miss the appeal deadlines or don't realize an appeal is even possible. Once that window closes, the higher tax bill becomes locked in for the entire year. Here's the shocking truth. Property appraisals are not final judgments, they are estimates. Yet many homeowners treat them as unchangeable facts. Appraisal notices arrive in the mail, filled with numbers and unfamiliar language, and are often set aside or ignored. By the time the tax bill arrives, it's too late to challenge the value. What makes this worse is that the appeal process is far less intimidating than people think. In many cases, a simple online protest, a review of comparable home sales, or pointing out basic property data errors can result in meaningful reductions. But because homeowners don't act in time, they lose the chance to correct inflated values. Another hidden danger is the compounding effect. When you don't appeal one year, the higher value often becomes the starting point for the next year. That means you're not just overpaying once, you're overpaying every year going forward, even if nothing about your home changes. Many people assume appeals are only for wealthy homeowners or investors. That's not true. In fact, informed homeowners are often the ones paying less than their neighbors, simply because they took action. Missing the deadline isn't just a mistake, it's a costly habit. The biggest takeaway is this: silence equals consent. If you don't question your appraisal, the system assumes you agree. Knowing your rights and using them can be the difference between accepting higher taxes or protecting your hard-earned money. If there's one thing this sudden wave of higher property tax bills has made clear, it's this: property taxes don't rise by accident. They rise through a combination of policy changes, appraisal methods, missed exemptions, and lack of awareness. For many Texas homeowners, the shock wasn't just the amount, it was the feeling of losing control overnight. But here's the empowering truth. Every reason we discussed points to the same lesson. Informed homeowners pay less than uninformed ones. The system is complex, but it isn't untouchable. Appraisals can be reviewed. Exemptions can be checked and corrected. Deadlines can be met, and local decisions can be monitored. The problem isn't that homeowners have no options, it's that most people don't realize those options exist. This situation is especially important right now. Rising costs, inflation, and economic uncertainty have already stretched household budgets thin. When property taxes increase unexpectedly, they don't just affect a yearly bill, they affect monthly cash flow, savings, and long-term stability. Ignoring the issue doesn't make it go away. In fact, it almost always makes it worse. The goal of this video isn't to create fear, it's to create clarity. Once you understand why your bill changed, you can take action with confidence instead of frustration. Even small steps, like reviewing your appraisal notice or confirming your exemptions, can lead to meaningful savings over time. Texas homeowners don't need to accept rising taxes as inevitable. Knowledge is leverage, awareness is protection, and action is how you keep your home from becoming a financial burden instead of a blessing.